This is where the stars align for great conversations. This week, we welcome one of Kansas' most familiar and trusted faces. He's both a broadcaster and a scientist who helped save countless lives during the course of his nearly 4-decade career. Merril Teller needs little introduction. From 1981 to 2019, he led the weather department at #1 ranked KWCH Eyewitness News. Whether rain, wind, hail, snow, or dangerous tornadoes, Teller was usually the first person Kansans turned to for life-saving information. Meanwhile, Merril's warm, engaging personality helped make his daily weathercast must-see TV for Kansans even on the mildest of weather days. But all good things eventually come to an end. After doing the weather longer than anyone else in Wichita television history, Merril decided to sign off. His last broadcast on KWCH was in July of 2019. Now Merril is enjoying the chance to sit back and smell the roses. He is retired and is here to share stories and reflect upon a career unparalleled in Kansas broadcasting. This promises to be an enjoyable and insightful half hour as I go one-on-one with the legendary Merril Teller. Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm thrilled to welcome a true television legend to the program, former KWCH Chief Meteorologist, Merril Teller.
Thank you, Victor.
What a pleasure to have you.
Well, I just enjoy being with you here, and I enjoy KPTS, of course.
I know you do watch KPTS.
Yes, I do.
Yes, and what are your favorite programs?
Anything on Sunday night, particularly Masterpiece.
Oh.
And I really enjoy getting to know your roots. Mm-hmm. That's just so intriguing to me. My family can only go back so far, but some of the information just is most interesting to me. And of course, some of the science programs, can't forget those.
Right. Now, this is your first chance for viewers to see you back on television since your retirement.
Right.
So, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I was warned before I retired that be prepared that every day is going to be Saturday. And they were absolutely right. The problem is there are some days where I think it's Saturday, but it's only Wednesday.
So retirement is fooling you then.
Yes, exactly that. It is a good problem to have.
Do you miss television?
I thought I would miss it more than I have. I was in the business for 38 years here in Wichita, a total of 44 years. I also worked in Oklahoma and Texas. And I thought I would miss it more than I have, but I'm finding things to do, hoping to do a little more volunteer work in the future, and just kind of stay active.
So how difficult was it to step away from television?
It actually was more or less planned a couple of years before I actually left. I'd worked out contracts with the television station so that about the time I would be able to get Social Security instead of a regular paycheck, that I was going to be ready, and it all worked out beautifully.
So, as familiar as you are to Kansas television viewers, there are a lot of things they've probably never heard you talk about. Mm-hmm. For example, tell us about your childhood.
I grew up on Long Island in New York.
A New Yorker?
Yes.
Yankee.
New Yorker. Yeah, from Long Island. You know, just to jump ahead a little bit, when I first came out to this part of the country, I was at the University of Oklahoma, and probably within about 2 sentences of my saying anything, people would say, "Oh, you're from back east," or
Yeah.
"Are you from New York?" or whatever. And so when I got into broadcasting, knowing that I was going to be in this part of the country, I really worked very seriously to get rid of as much of my New York accent as I could.
So you grew up in New York, graduated from college there,
At, well, Rutgers University
Rutgers
in New Jersey.
New Jersey, and then came to Oklahoma to work in your master's degree.
Yes,
in,
at OU.
In meteorology?
In meteorology, both. My BS is in meteorology from Rutgers, although I have to be honest about my master's, I never did finish that. Had the opportunity to get a full-time TV job, and I had been doing a lot of radio work before that, and the company that I worked for also had a contract with one of the television stations in Oklahoma City, and I got to be a fill-in guy on that, and that's how I first got involved in TV.
Well, you didn't finish the master's, but you've done very well for yourself.
My mother still complains, when are you going to finish? When are you going to finish?
Well, so at what point did you develop that interest in the weather business? I mean, you majored to get a bachelor's degree from Rutgers and continued the education. How did you develop the interest?
There were probably two or three different things in my life that led me toward meteorology. Number one, when I was about 5 years old, we had a 22-inch snowstorm on Long Island. And as a kid that age with that much snow, it was just so much fun. But also interesting, how did this even happen? Then when I was 8 years old, we went through Hurricane Donna and came right over Long Island. And again, it was amazing to understand, to go through it. We had winds 75, 80 miles an hour. And so I started researching what hurricanes were about. Also had a favorite television weather guy. He was a meteorologist also in New York. And I always thought as a kid, because I watched a lot of television as a kid, that it looked like it would be something interesting to do. Forecast weather, tell people what was going to be going on. And so those things all got me interested in meteorology.
So how did you end up here in Wichita and worked here 38 years? And first, where did you spend the 6 years prior to here?
I worked in full-time in Wichita Falls, Texas for 2.5 years, and then back to Oklahoma City.
At a TV station?
Yes, at a television station in Wichita Falls. In Oklahoma City, I worked part-time for a private weather forecasting company, and through that, that's what got me into television. And I was with that for 3.5 years, so that was the 6 years before my 38 in Wichita.
So how much of a cultural shock was there coming from New York and New Jersey to the South?
It was pretty significant, although I've always considered myself lucky because I've known some people who have tried to do it the other way around, go from the Midwest or the South to New York, and it can be somewhat overwhelming. Now, I grew up in the suburbs. I didn't grow up in the city, so I had a typical suburban life as best as I know. But for folks who try to get into the city itself, into Manhattan or Brooklyn, it's such a difference in lifestyle and just the way of living that I'm fortunate to have gone the other way around.
When you were growing up, did you decide that you want to become a meteorologist, or what did you want to do in the field of weather?
Before I got to actually made that decision, because I had in the back of my mind as a kid growing up, I just really enjoyed weather. My father was an electrical engineer. I actually got into an electrical engineering program in high school for 3 years, and that's what convinced me that I didn't want to do electrical engineering. So by the time I was a junior in high school, I had decided, no, I wanted to pursue meteorology as a profession. Then it came time, of course, to find a college to go to. Not every university has a program in meteorology. Here in Kansas, it's only KU. If you want to study meteorology at K-State, you can take a couple of weather classes, but that's about it. Can't get a full-fledged degree. That's only at KU. So I had to start looking for the right colleges and looked around. That's what led me to Rutgers. And then went through the same process after I graduated from Rutgers, looking for a place with a graduate program. Because Rutgers didn't really have a very large meteorology program at that point. There were 10 of us in my graduating class in meteorology. So again, looked around, went to several different places and ended up picking OU.
So what was the goal at the time? To become what? To do what with this weather business?
My first thoughts were to work for the National Weather Service,
I see.
the largest employer of meteorologists in the United States, about 10,000.
Wow.
Working for the Weather Service all across America. So that was what my lead was. My secondary was, well, maybe I'll get into broadcasting. But the Weather Service came first.
Now, you know, you spent 38 years in Wichita, and that is very unusual for broadcasters.
Yes.
We move around a lot,
Yes.
Especially to move up.
Mm-hmm.
What kept you here?
The city, the people. We had a son, and the education that he could get here in Wichita, both in school and outside of school. He was involved in a number of extracurricular activities, and it just seemed to fit well. The people of Wichita and the people that I got to work with over the years, always worked with a great bunch of folks. Everybody always got along. It was really always at Channel 12 a team effort from the beginning, even when the station was not the best television station anywhere, to when we finally moved on up in the market, and it just felt natural. It felt comfortable for me, and for my family.
You helped move Channel 12 up in the market. How did that happen?
That began when Channel 12 was sold by the Minneapolis Star and Tribune Company to a couple of gentlemen from Hays, Kansas, Ross Beach and Bob Schmidt. And they turned the station around by investing a lot of money in old, barely working equipment. They brought in a new general manager, who many people probably may remember, Ron Bergamo, because he used to do a call-in the manager program during our noon show on Fridays every week. And people could call in to praise or more often critique what was going on with the television station. But Ron was an out there guy. He was a real glad hander, loved to shake hands, loved to visit with people. And they brought in an advertising company to give us a new identity. And that's when we became the look of a leader. And in fact, they, as part of that campaign, they had made a large styrofoam 12 with our old 12 logo and literally blew it up. I mean, physically blew the thing up. I'm sure older folks watching will remember that. And then debuted the new logo and the new campaign for the look of a leader. And over time, bringing in new people, particularly folks who were going to be on the air, it turned things around. And it was that, to me, the biggest part of it was that connection to the community.
Right. And being the chief meteorologist at that station at the time, how did that make you feel to see things being turned around?
It's what you hope for.
Yeah.
It's what you strive for in broadcast. No matter what your job is at a television station, whether you're on camera or behind the scenes, the idea is put your best foot forward, and I think we were able to do that over my time.
Merril, how has television, or weather, I should say, weather forecasting changed over the years, especially
goodness.
Your working years?
Yeah, immensely. From the technology that's available, particularly when we're talking about severe weather, when the National Weather Service came up with Doppler radar, that was a huge, huge advancement in our capability to detect storms, to understand what storms were doing, to be able to tell, well, this storm is probably producing hail, that one is not, even though they may look the same on one part of the radar. We have these secondary things that we can look at. The technology, the presentation technology. When I first came here, we were using large maps that I could pull in and out from behind a wall, and they were covered in plexiglass, and I would use a magic marker to write in the temperatures, draw in the fronts and the high and low pressure areas. And of course now we've got this humongous technology where not just what we've always had in the old days with what people think of as the blue screen or the green screen, where we would be in front of it and everything that we would be talking about was behind us. Well, now we've got a third dimension. There's stuff that can show up in front of you and behind you all at the same time.
Right.
It's been just a huge advancement. And the other thing with forecasting is with bigger and faster computers, the guys who do create the weather models of the atmosphere have become much more complex, give us much more information, which isn't always a good thing. Because sometimes you can get overwhelmed with information.
Right.
When I was in college, there were 2 computer models for analyzing the atmosphere. Now there's about 8. And you have to decide every day, which one is this scenario of weather that you're looking at, which is likely to do the best.
So while you were pulling the boards and the maps out, what were the other stations doing in Wichita in those days?
Pretty much the same. Computers had not come into being yet. Those didn't start until about 83 or 84, that the first television graphic computer actually was on the scene.
So how much pressure did you feel, Merril, when severe weather threatened and you knew that the public was relying on you to give them life-saving information?
I think it's an adrenaline thing. It kicks in pretty quickly when you've got severe storms, particularly something that could be hurtful, both to people and to animals. A lot of times folks forget that we have a lot of ranchers in Kansas with a lot of cattle. And in the midst of either a tornado or large hail event, it can be very, very costly, not just personally, but because that's what their business is. Other than that, my main concern was always to calm people and not to excite people, and try to keep everything so that people will do a better job if they're not overreacting to this situation. So part of our job was to stay the proverbial cool, calm, and collected while we're on the air. And hopefully that will translate to the viewer, and then they'll do the appropriate steps for keeping safe.
All right. So let's get the viewers, let's help the viewers to get to know you a little better.
Okay.
I will start a sentence and you finish it up.
Oh boy.
All right.
Alrighty.
The first one is, one thing I've discovered since retiring is?
That there's a lot of hours in the day to fill up with things to do.
So what are you doing with those hours?
You know, I took the time, the end of 2019, and just decided I was just going to kind of take it easy. More time, obviously, to be able to spend with family. But also, having worked in television for many, many years, didn't get to watch a lot of television except on the weekends because I was working. So catching up with some television shows that I had always said, you know, I wish I could watch that, but I'm at the station at that time, can't watch it. So I'm starting to catch up with some TV shows that are in a backlog.
One thing I miss about my old job is?
Oh, I know it's a catchphrase, but it is the people. Always worked, as I said earlier, with some fabulous people. Some of them are working behind your cameras here right now, and everybody always got along. There was rarely an incident where there were any voices raised or anything like that.
One thing I don't miss about my old job is?
The pressure of getting newscasts, getting the weathercasts ready for noon, for 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whichever hours you happen to be working. You know, newspaper folks, they have one deadline every day. Those of us in broadcast have numerous deadlines every day. And so the pressure of that, yeah, that's the thing I miss the least.
The period in my life I reflect upon most is?
Probably, I went through a period here early on where it looked like I might not be keeping my job. And the viewing audience came to my defense. And that would have been about 3 years in to my time here. And from the end of May of that year, when I was told my contract wasn't going to be renewed until the end of August, that 2-month period, and this was we were still number 3 in the 3-station market at KWCH. Actually, back then we were KTVH.
Okay.
People wrote in or called in or whatever and literally saved my job. And so over the years, I've always been very
What
grateful.
happened? Is this something you can share with us?
Researchers had actually told the management to get rid of everybody who was on the air and start over again. And the response the management decided not to be that drastic. And they kept Roger. They kept the sports anchor at the time. It was before Bruce Hurdle. But they were going to let me and the female anchor go. And it was that response from the public that changed things for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very
humbling.
They must have liked you.
I would guess.
You did a good job for them.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think they trusted you, that's why. I'm happiest when?
Oh, with family. No doubt about that, especially the 2 grandkids.
My favorite type of television program is?
Sports.
Sports.
Yes, absolutely.
One thing I really like about our present day society is?
That I like about present day society is that for the most part, but there are of course some very large differences, kind of like for myself, if you work hard, get yourself out there, dreams can come true.
What don't you like about the present day society?
Right now is the politics. Now that I get to watch a lot more about
describe the politics that you don't like.
the divisiveness between left and right. I won't say anything about our president, but just say I'm not a big fan.
Oh, okay. My favorite kind of weather is?
Between 75 and 80 degrees, sunshine, and winds about 10 miles an hour, maybe 15, not much more than that.
One thing that people may be surprised to know about me is?
That people might be surprised. I know I've been out there for so long. Well, a lot of people don't know that I'm Jewish, so that's probably the biggest thing.
Okay. Tell us about your family. You mentioned your grandkids.
Yep. My mom is 94, still alive. She's out in California, lives with my sister. My wife and I have been married since 1976. Funny story there. Our marriage license, which we got married in New Orleans, where she's from, was number 1776 for that year.
1776?
Yeah, in 1976.
Right.
So the bicentennial.
Right.
That was quite a coincidence. So we've been married since 76. We have a son. He was born in 84, so he's 35 now. My wife was a social worker. She's retired also. And our son is a pilot flying big aircraft for FedEx.
All right.
And 2 grandkids. The girl is 4. She's actually, yesterday was her birthday, so she's actually 5 now. And my grandson is 7 going on 8.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
In your 38 years of weathercasting in Kansas, what moments stand out in your memory?
Well, the tornadic activity, certainly. The Andover tornado, the Heston tornado, Greensburg tornado. There are many others, but those are the really big ones that they weighed pretty heavily on us at the time because of the fatalities. But with the technology that improved over the years, that was one of the things that helped. Instead of the double digits that we saw of fatalities in the Andover tornado, Greensburg several years later was not so much, because we had better technology to detect and know where that tornado was within that thunderstorm complex.
So now that you have more time to pursue your various interests, what's the top of your bucket list?
Oh, more travel. We've been fortunate through the television stations to have gone just in the last few years on several trips, including a couple to Europe. Every month or 2, my wife changes her mind on where she wants to go next. Maybe Europe, maybe Asia, but that's probably number 1 on what we hope to be able to do a little bit more of. And I just want to get more involved with volunteer activity here in Wichita.
So now that you're retired, Merril, what do you live for today?
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That'll all be changing as I start getting involved with different organizations. I hope to get involved with League 42, the kids baseball program. I grew up loving sports totally, but baseball is still my number one love. And also as a prostate cancer survivor, want to get involved with some cancer survivor groups.
Has the meaning of life changed for you now?
I don't know that it really has. I think I look at things pretty much the same as I did. I just don't look at weather maps as much as I used to. But no, I think things are pretty steady as she goes for me and in my life.
So then tell us, what is the meaning of life for you today?
The meaning of life. That's Monty Python. Just do your best, be kind, and look forward to every day as being a new day.
Has your work changed your perception of life?
Well, certainly when you work in a business where there are fatalities sometimes, things that you have nothing to do with, sometimes unavoidable, you just have to stay the course and try to be a good neighbor.
Merril, Teller, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching this edition of One-on-One. One-on-one at kpts.org is our email address. That is, if you have a question or comment. Until next time, I'm Victor Hogstrom, and I'll see you again soon.